Welcome to the You Go First podcast. This is the place where we bring together thought leaders, business pioneers, personal development gurus, and just about any person we discover that will inspire and compel you to go first in all areas of your life. Please welcome keynote speaker, philanthropist, and the official head dream chaser for Odyssey Teams, Inc., our host, Lain Hensley.
Here we go. You go first.
No, you go first.
You go first, Mike.
I insist. You go first.
I will go first. This is Lain Hensley again at You Go First, and I'm super excited to have a longtime dear friend who has gone on and done some pretty amazing things. I know that in 2010, you were Butte County Office of Ed Trustee. Congratulations.
First time
Mike.
being elected. Thank you.
I know you've graduated from college and you're doing great things with your life. I know that you're the president. Thank you, President, or past president, of the California School Board of Association. So that's a pretty big deal. So this podcast today, I want to first of all welcome Mike Walsh. Welcome, Mike, to the studio.
Appreciate it, Lain.
Yay, Mike.
It's a joy to be here.
I know you also have your own company. You're the CEO of Beacon Results, which is a consulting company. You go into schools and into educational system and into organizations as well and help them get better results. So
how to focus in and move on.
All that awesome stuff. It's been just a privilege to know you as a person and where you've come from and what you've accomplished. And now I'm excited to maybe look back on this footage someday as you move further and further into, the things that make things happen in the legislation and political world, because you're just an amazing guy. Which,
by the way, I can neither confirm nor deny that any of that will happen.
That you're an amazing guy?
Well, that part. I'm in.
Well, I know you'll do something next. I know whether it's through Beacon or whatever. And I know now that you're not the president of the school association, what are you currently?
So at this moment, I still work with CSBA, the California School Board Association, but recently I was appointed the next step in this this evolution. I'll try that. One of these words, okay?
These are straight runs. We don't edit anything.
That's great. So one of the things I've been appointed to now is I'm an advisor for charter schools to the State Board of Education. So that's my next delve into the next part of it as far as influencing education. So other than that, I'm just a regular guy who wants to try and make a little money every now and then and feed the family and keep living indoors.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. You spend your money on luxuries like mortgage and food. I love it.
It's crazy. It's out of control.
So, big picture, if you're listening out there, so Mike has come a long way in his personal journey of leadership, and you found yourself as the president of the school board, or not the school board, California School Boards Association, which is massive. I mean, 3,000.
Well, there's 5,000 school board members, and the easiest way I usually explain it to high school students, 5,000 elected school board members in the state. I was the ASB president for 1 year.
Okay, that's big time stuff, man. I'm so proud of you. So I hope through this podcast, we're going to learn about what Mike's perspective is as far as in the You Go First world of, how can kids or the young people in our current education system, how can they go first and learn to really thrive in the current system? How can parents, we're both parents of kids, you have grandkids now, I know, and how can we support them through that? What are areas where we might be able to impact the system? And then, of course, legislatively and leadership-wise, from your perspective and the experiences you've had, will you please share with us, where you think we're going, or what are areas that we should learn about or listen for that might make all of that better?
Absolutely. That sounds like a great conversation.
So we only have a half hour, so it's a big chunk.
We'll do our best.
We've got to start with, just tell us a little about Mike. Where did you start? Where were you born? What was your environment like coming up? I know who you are now, but tell our listeners and just where did this all begin? So
for a lot of folks, they're usually surprised when you talk about the list of accomplishments lately. I still scratch my head. I'm a little surprised in all of it. And my story, I grew up in a small town south of here called LA. Familiar with it?
Yes, I think so.
And I grew up in a place where poverty, I think of it this way. I tell folks I would not have bet on me to be successful if I think of other kids who have my start. Mother and father were divorced over domestic violence when I was 3. I was raised by my grandparents on welfare and disability. My grandfather had fallen down a flight of stairs where he worked, and so he was permanently disabled. And now I'm living in Inglewood, right? And so here we have this young black male who the odds are starting to stack up against me. And then we moved from Inglewood, where everyone looked like me, to this little tiny town called Rackerby. And it's east of Oroville by about 20 miles. And up there was no one that looked like me except for my younger brother. And so again, I'm going out of what I know is so familiar to the completely unfamiliar. And I'm starting to wonder, once again, statistically speaking, that's not real good odds for success, right? And we had to travel. Again, I had this hard luck story of I'm walking 2 miles to the bus stop. Yeah, who does 2 mile walks to a bus stop?
I mean, everybody's grandpa says
everybody's
stuff like
right? And uphill both ways.
Yeah,
most of the time. And it was this interesting thing around, that was how I got to the bus stop every morning, carrying my football gear, carrying my whatever gear. And that was just a part of it. So I never really thought twice about it. And then when I got into high school, that's where things started to shift a little bit, is that there were just a group of people who took an interest in me. They saw something in me that I didn't. And I have folks who just, met whatever resources we didn't have. My mother didn't drive. She didn't have a license, no car. I'm one of the few people I know that graduated from high school, attended all 4 years, never missed a day. All right. So how do you do that when you don't have transportation? It was just the rest of the community, the rest of the folks, they kind of picked up the slack in these different areas. But there wasn't a plan in place. It was just good people wanting to do good work.
Were your grandparents raising you at this point?
Yes.
They moved up here with you, or were they like iron fist grandpa, or just like love and just like, how did...
all of the above.
You didn't miss a day in high school. Was that just because you just are like that? Or was
two
it
things.
fear?
It was, Juanita Sheed was my grandmother, and she taught me resilience at an early age, and it kind of stuck with me. And the way she taught me resilience, we talk about grit and resilience and determination and all those things. Juanita Sheed taught me when I was a small child. I had a report card with 4 A's, 2 B's, brought that home, and she said, "This is nice, but you can do better." All right, fine. So I got the next report card, 5 A's and 1 B. "Oh, this is cute, baby, but you can do better." I'm like, well, do better. So I brought the report card home. Now I got 6 A's, no B's, no C's. She looks at it, she goes, "This is nice, but it says over here on this side, you talk too much in class." All right. And I thought, this woman's going to kill me. All right. I used to joke that she was my drug problem. She drugged me to church, drugged me to school, whatever, all of those things. Right. So she was a resource that a lot of kids don't have, because Juanita Sheed always had this high expectation, and she was sincere about me living up to that high expectation. And that just kind of stuck with me all my life now, where I've always thought I may be in over my head, but I can still hear Juanita Sheed's voice saying, "You can do more, you can do better. Don't worry, you just have to do the work." So that's been a big piece of what has carried me. And then having those folks surround me who said, "Hey, we see something in you. Have you ever thought about running for..." So my freshman year, that spring semester, I ran for one of the class officers. Been a class officer the next, all the rest of the years through high school, every semester. And then I had other folks who, teachers or board members or administrators, people who just found an interest in me and kept saying, "Hey, you should be involved in this. Hey, we can keep you involved in this."
So leadership clearly came easily to you.
It was a part of the process. It was just sort of part of the conversation and being engaged, and just being a part of the community. So I was in love with school. So it was easy for me to be there.
People don't know Rackerby. They don't know. So I was born in Oroville as well. So pretty close to where you grew up. And so this is in 1980 something.
So I graduated back in 1982.
1982, you're the only black kid at your school, or you and your brother?
At this point, when we hit high school, I would say the population of kids, and someone else will have to do the math, but it's around 6% of the student population. And so Oroville in the high school district, I think at that time was about 2,500 students. So whatever that math is on how many African-American students that was, it's about 5 to 6%, somewhere in that area. Yeah. And it's been a pretty consistent number for Oroville.
And I mean, I've known you, so you've got great smile and great energy and, great, you have charisma. I mean, you have it. And it's pretty awesome to see now what you're doing with your skills and your intellect. I mean, because you have the ability to put people together, to put thoughts together, to put curriculum together, to put legislation together now. I mean, you have worked on legislation, and I've seen you, become like, this is another one of my sort of semi-adopted kids that lives with us for this amount of time. And I mean, you just have that welcoming way about you. And, part of learning to go first is you've gone first for so many people to see in them what they didn't see in themselves. And I know you're a speaker, so you find yourself on the stage often trying to inspire people to see those things. So here you come now, you're in high school, you're finding yourself in leadership. Were you in a structured leadership? Were you in CASC or some kind of a leadership program and went to camps and all that kind of stuff?
All of that. So for me, with the very first CASC, as a matter of fact, the first CASC camp happened between my junior and senior year. And I'd been an officer at every level. And then I was elected as the ASB president my senior year. And they thought we should probably give him some training. He's all energy. We might want to focus him a little bit. And so I went to CASC camp and learned a few things and came back and just became absorbed in the work. And this was probably the first time that the notion of servant leadership started to really make sense to me. I really started to focus on that of, how do I serve? How do I help things become better at our school? And that was the goal. And it's just kind of continued to roll there as I keep looking at each level that I've gone since high school. Like, how do I serve?
So you've accomplished so much and the show is so short. Who was the mentor and what did they teach you in your high school years? What a couple of thoughts you had or things that drove you or would guide you?
It was kind of nice because when I was got elected to be when I was on the board of directors for CSBA before I became an officer, I got to give a speech about equity and my story, and really the teachers who I had. I have had the opportunity. What a blessing it's been to be able to go find those teachers again and thank them. Because for some of them, it was just their constant belief in me and their gentle nudge into doing more. And they all appreciated my energy, but everybody had this constant conversation about focus. And how do we get you to focus in on one thing at a time? And you got all these amazing abilities. I still don't know what all those abilities were, quite frankly, but the ability to focus was not one of them. And so for them to consistently talk to me about, here's the area to focus, to use some of those skills, it was good. It's what saved me.
I would say I probably had a lot of those. I mean, would we qualify as ADD, kind of like, and he's going in this way and that way? I mean, it wasn't even a diagnosed thing back then. So I think a sort of acceptance, like, okay, here's this guy with all this energy. Now we just got to teach him how to focus. And I still struggle with that. You probably still struggle with that because you've got a list a mile long of all the things you want to continue to accomplish.
All the things that I need to do, and time is short, even if time isn't short. I always try and move with a sense of urgency because there are so many things on that list. So really it's around, what is that list? And as long as the list is around something that's bigger than me, I do fine. Because that's the energy that I drive from it is, this is so much bigger. So when I'm working with students, the work that I do as a trustee, that's work around how do we help them have the same success story that I had if they don't have a Juanita Sheed in their corner, if they don't have some of the people in their corner that I had. All right, those are resources. What do I do to get those kids resources? Because I know how well they have served me and how well they've served my kids and a lot of the kids around me. We need to get those resources to those students. What do they look like? And they may not have Juanita Sheed, but we can figure out what else they have. Yeah.
Okay. So there's so much. As the president of the California School Board, boards, and as here you're a student coming from LA to then the sticks, and then finding yourself in leadership and now as a parent. And so words of wisdom to us from the Mike Walsh perspective of how can young people today learn to thrive in the environment? And if you can toggle between the young people, we have parents, I'm a parent of an 8th grader, a senior in high school and a college student. So we are in the middle of that system. And then administratively, and what do you know on the state level of things that maybe are in the future, or what's the spirit of the conversation and how we improve schools in California?
So California is really leading the charge. Right? So California, we take a beating all the time because we're California. But truthfully, everybody's watching what California is doing because we've tried to figure out those kids, again, who are like me, that were growing up without some of those resources. How do we increase the odds they're going to be successful? So what I would say is, if I'm talking to students themselves, I tell them, be curious. Start to check out and explore as many things as possible. Because I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I still had no clue what I was going to do for a living. When I was 38, I barely had a clue what I was going to do for a living, right? And so I tell kids all the time, be genuinely curious. There's 3 secrets to your success. Find something that you love to do, that you are passionate about it. Oh my God, you just can't imagine being paid. That would just be crazy cool. What's something that you have a talent for? And a talent is the thing that we often overlook. It's when people say something like, well, I'm just kind of good at that. It's no big deal. Whoa, slow down. Mm-hmm. That's your talent, okay? Mm-hmm. And the third most important thing, something somebody's willing to pay you for. Now, a lot of kids, that lets out video games, right? They're good at video games. They love it.
Fortnite. The guy made $1 million.
Oh, wait. No one else is getting paid. So that's a great hobby. What do you have that you really want to go do for a living so that you can contribute, so you can be excited about it? So that's why I always tell kids, look for that stuff. With parents, I always say, encourage that exploration and be willing to let your son, daughter, grandkids, whoever, niece, nephew, let them go off and explore and fail. Failure is not a bad thing. I run into so many parents who they're scared to let them fail. And I say, no, let them fail. Because there's a great conversation there around what happened, what went right, what didn't go so well. What are you learning from that? What's your next project? But we've gotten kids so scared to take a risk.
Yeah.
That unless, and I'll ask kids this all the time, how many of you will raise your hand in the class if you don't absolutely positively know the correct answer? And very few of them will ever do that. And it's because we're fear adverse, right? It's taking a risk. But that's really what we need in the world, are more people who are willing to take a risk, not be reckless, right? Because that was me. All that unbridled energy could easily be reckless. So I tell parents, encourage them to take risk, and if they fail, it's okay. It doesn't reflect on you, mom and dad.
It's so scary, though. I mean, how much failure is learning failure, and at what point do they make a decision that and it impacts the rest of their life? And I think that's the hardest thing as a parent. It's like, knowing, okay, they failed in the 7th or 8th grade. Okay, cool. Colleges aren't going to look at those grades. They failed at this relationship or in this situation. They didn't get the homework assignment done. I think that's a really hard thing for us, because I think with social media and with so much public awareness around everybody's behaviors, it's like Johnny made this team and Sally made that team and Tom made this and there's just like this platform where everybody knows everybody's business. Yes. So we want to make it all look perfect with a filter.
And I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm aware of its existence and why it's important, but I'm the first person to tell you I could live without it. And because of everything you're describing, it creates this interesting pressure on kids to do and be successful in a way that, we can now put them on, they'll have more followers because they're doing some amazing things. And as a parent, I'm always challenging parents to say, hang on, is that really the life that you want for your child? Because we've got this interesting push-pull thing going on with career or college. And truthfully, It should be career and college, right? And so, because even the plumber is not digging up all the trenches anymore. Now they're using computers to be able to, diagnose what's going on with your work. There's still a skill set that's needed for that kid. So for me, I always tell parents, hang on a second. If a kid grows up and they're pushing dirt with the earth mover, and they're getting paid $80,000, $90,000 a year.
That's what I did.
And they're happy and excited, and they're taking care of their kids, but they didn't go to Yale. Does that somehow take away from their success in life? I mean, they're doing amazing things.
Putting a picture of my son at Yale on my Facebook would be so awesome.
Exactly. So that's about me as a parent, not about the kid.
Yeah,
right?
like you said, the kids have pressure to create their own little TV show that gets a lot of views, but the parents have that. Imagine if you drive to school and every car in the parking lot has my son's on the honor roll, my daughter's on, except for you can't put it on because you're kid. That's essentially what happens on a grand scale as far as what is the results your kid gets today? How do you brag about him today? And I think what you said about just developing those skill set, because I know your skill set, you're going to be successful no matter what you do. And how do we facilitate people learning that skill set of self-confidence or, figuring problem solving or coping with failure, coping with fear?
Well, think about everything that you're describing right now. You become better at it because you failed a few times.
Yeah.
And then you get back up and you try it again, and you fail, and you get back up and you try again. And each time you fail a little forward, you're moving further and further in success. So how do we get parents? My thing is to get parents to realize your kids will be okay. It's not about you, as long as you give them the basic foundation they need so they can be successful wherever they go. And that becomes a challenge.
It's epidemic because most of our work at Odyssey and corporate work is around change and all this stressful change. And I think fear of change is fear of like, maybe I won't be ready for this change. Maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll fall short. And it stems from, I think, that sense of, as kids, being like, it's okay for something new to come my way. And I'm not the expert at it, but I'm going to dive in, do the best I can. I'm going to fail forward, like you said. So, we only have like 10 more minutes. So
okay, let's focus.
Let's talk about what's going on at the state level. You've seen things I've never seen. You've been in those conversations. What's Mike Walsh's take from those lenses and that perspective?
Well, this is supposed to be an upbeat show, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to describe this for a few minutes, and it's not going to feel very upbeat because there is a challenge out there, and it is connected to dollars. It comes back to it. We did the math on it at the California School Board Association, and there's a few other associations that have done the math, the Policy Institute, a few other folks, and what we have figured out is, here's the standards, everything that we're being asked to teach kids, prepare them to be ready for college, careers, and civically engaged, right? We want them to be engaged and stuff. But we figured out in order to do everything that we're being asked to do, we're coming up somewhere between 20 and 40 billion with a B, not million, 20 to 40 billion dollars short in what we're being asked to do.
Wow.
We need more teachers, more librarians, more nurses, more whatever. Nothing surprising, right? This isn't about salaries. This is literally about bodies and resources. Again, not everybody has Juanita Sheed, right? So how do we kind of fix some of those things? How do we give them? And it's not because we want to ensure and guarantee you're going to have success. It's so you can have an opportunity to have success. So we've looked at all that and figured out we're about 20 to 40 billion dollars short. And all those things that we can do for a school to increase their ability to meet those needs of every student, we just have to get better about that. It's a funding issue. But where in the world are we going to find $20 billion in California?
Excellent question.
All right? And so that's a big challenge. We've already done a lot of the focus groups and the math on it. We know that people, if they knew the money was going straight to that school, never anywhere else, folks are in.
Yeah.
But the challenge is some of the other parts that go along in Sacramento about trust, distrust, money, who gets it. I thought it was supposed to go over here for gas. What do you mean it's not on the road? And so there's this big distrust that's happening.
Yeah.
And when we ask for money as a school, and oh, by the way, every time anyone asks for money of the state, of the public, they always say, hey, it's good for schools. Maybe, maybe not. But this is the thing that we're trying to figure out is if we had the money, we could do so much more because we're trying to prepare kids for things that are in the future. We don't know what that's going to look like, but we know it's not going to look like when you and I were kids in school when dinosaurs roamed the planet. It's different, right? Because now everything is technology. And it's changing the world. So that's our big thing.
I know you people will be able to find your Facebook and they can follow your record. I know to put it in the context, I know you're not a tax and spend politician. You're not just like, we need more money, more money, more money. So I'm a little surprised to hear you say that, frankly. Because, as a parent, I'm like, well, we're spending all this money on X, Y, and Z. There's so much waste and all this stuff. But there really is. And I believe you that like you've seen that behind the curtain of Oz and said, whoa. There's just not enough resources here. We need money to buy those things, to put in place those systems and structures. So like you said, so every kid could be successful.
Well, and in California, we have the highest rate of poverty for students in schools of the nation. We have the highest number of English language learners and diverse. I don't mean just south of the border. I mean, some school districts have 40 or 50 different languages spoken, right? So you've got to get people in there who are bilingual and they can help with that, do all that work. That's cost money to find all those folks. And we get it. We're short. And the thing that I always tell folks is, look, I got 6.2 million kids, right, that I've adopted.
Yeah.
And
in typical Walsh.
They're my kids.
Yeah.
And the truth is their stories say that we have more work to do. And the data, that was the thing that was the biggest change for me, is looking at the data says we got more work to do and we have to do better by all students. And that we do mean all, whether they're successful or not. My job is to figure out how to help them become more successful.
Well, we've both done a lot in our efforts, to impact the students in the educational system and the parents. And so as I'm hearing you, it's like some people can go, well, those kids shouldn't even be in California. There's this whole political But I think that your job as someone that's in that role, and everybody in education, isn't to question why that kid is in my classroom.
On the nose.
Why do they live in my town? That's not your concern. Your concern is they live in our town. Now our job is to educate them.
You said it perfectly. If you're here, go to school.
And I think people get really caught in the trap of like, well, there shouldn't be any. It's like, what do you do? Just like pause everything and don't educate people for 10 years because those 5 million shouldn't even be in, you go, nope, they're here and our job is to give them services.
That's my point.
There's other stuff out there that
somebody else can deal with that.
10, 20 years ago would have led to them maybe not being in this classroom, but they're in this classroom and they deserve our best.
That's our whole focus. And I think that's an important thing in the concept of you go first. It's like, look, I don't have time to be upset or be concerned about that other stuff. My job is to I've got a student in front of me. I need to meet his needs. Someone else go fight and argue about those other things. I got to take care of this kid. Because this student deserves the same opportunities that I have been afforded because I was able to take advantage of some things. And that nobody, when I was, this poor black kid growing up in LA, no one looked at me and said, sorry, your parents, your family should have done this, then you'd have the opportunity. They just said, you're interested, you're willing to do the work, let's meet you. Let's go do some more work. And that, for me, is the philosophy of, hey, kids here, they're in class. My job is to educate them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what they got going on at home, that's not my business. My business is make sure they have the opportunity someday to have an opportunity. That's a great focus. And it keeps me clear about what I'm trying to do.
The opportunity to someday have an opportunity.
That's it. I don't want to guarantee it, but I want to make sure you have an opportunity to someday have an opportunity. So what do I need to do? What are you interested in? That's why I want kids to explore. Oh, you really are excited about music? Well, we got to make sure you have a music teacher. We got to make sure you have music classes. So you may someday do something with the music, or you may not. But I'm going to give you the opportunity so you can have an opportunity someday.
Well, I know you were a coach, I've coached before, and music is so important, and all these extracurricular things that we've heard, the cut. And it's like, those are the things that got me through school, was that like excitement for choir, or my excitement to play tennis, or whatever sport was, and the kind of community, all that extra stuff that has to exist around education to activate the sort of trigger for all of those different personality types out there. Well, you've always been somebody who just rushes right to the fire. You're the guy that's like, oh, okay, I'll help. And you don't do it out of ego. I know that a lot of the kids that you sort of semi-adopted through your high school experiences, and kids that you call your kids, that, all of that is just, you're always the one that just put your hand up and said, I'll do it. And I just love that. What's the thing driving you right now? What's next for Mike Walsh?
What's really driving me is that I still see some of my work. One of the things I do is I get kids to tell their story. And what's amazing is that the more I hear someone's story, especially when kids start to become truthful and honest, and they you've seen it happen before, where they just share some things and it'll shock your senses. And the more I see that, and the more I see their story, the more it drives me to say, my work isn't done. I have more to go do. And I'm also mindful of everything that was done for me. I see people all the time who say they were self-made. And I think that's incredibly disrespectful to all the people who surrounded you at some point in life. Mm-hmm. So they know your story, and that's why they put that effort into you. And so I'm starting to know more and more stories about students. It drives me to serve, right? So this notion of it's bigger than me, right? And my world is not necessarily the entire globe or the planet. But my world, and that's what I always tell administrators and parents and anybody else, hey, what if you were to just make that you go first thing? What if you were just to impact and influence your world at home? What if it was just you and your household, or you and your neighborhood, or you and the people that you work with? What if you were just to invest in them and see them have the same opportunities that you've been blessed with? Right?
That's scary. I mean, that's accountability for it's so much easier to go, well, if the governor would do this and the school board, and I can spend a lot of energy blaming like these things and a border, whatever you want to complain about that's so far beyond you. And you end up in this sort of like, I just work here mentality, or I just live here and it's all going to hell. It's like, there's something I can do and it's right in front of me.
And that's the challenge, is helping people understand that. Like, what are you called to serve? What are you called to do? One of my favorite quotes is, to lead people, you love them. To save people, you serve them. Right? And so if you really love people, they will follow. But it has to be about genuinely loving them, and it has to be about genuinely serving them. Because you've worked with kids, and you don't smell very authentic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they can figure it out in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're authentic, they just come out of nowhere. And that's how we ended up with so many kids that, I call my own, or they call me coach, or they call me whatever, because they know we are genuinely interested in their success. And what do I need to do, young man, young lady, so you can be more successful? All right, well, let's figure that out. And so one of the other focuses I have right now is initiative over in Oroville, really trying to help African-American families be more influential in what happens in their schools. I want to give them some power. They shouldn't have to depend just on me. I want to teach them everything they need to know so that they can now they have the better odds of influencing the school to give their kids an opportunity to have that opportunity, whatever it looks like. And so I think being called to serve, if you're clear about why you're serving, this why, the energy comes in and it's exciting and it's easier to go first. Otherwise, we say go first and it's just an easy thing that just kind of rolls off the lips. But it's really, there's danger out there. When you go first, well, you're wearing a target. And I've discovered the target a few times. I got called a racist in an article one time because of some legislation that I got to help pass. And the commentary and I do bad things. I jump to where the comments are and all the articles, and there it is. Like, I was called a racist. Like, what? Me? Come on. Right? And so it's the thing of there's a target.
Yeah.
And leadership means you're going to take some shots, and you just have to be willing to do it, because for me, it's the reminder is there are other kids out there who have my story, who are depending on me to create the opportunity for them. So it becomes really easy to deal with and easy to stay focused, easy to get my energy going. And my whole world is wrapped around this leadership and service thing. And so it kind of fits. It's a reason why I smile. People are always curious. I was like, no, I'm not up to something bad. I smile because I genuinely love and enjoy what it is I do. Yeah. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited to get to introduce you more to our listeners, to the world. I just am so just in awe of what you're doing with your life. And I'm so proud to have known you way back when.
This is so last century.
So last century when we were
worried about Y2K.
Yeah, that didn't really happen. But we fear a lot of stuff. And, like you said, you become a target. And I think if people aren't taking shots at you, then you're not really shaking things up too much. And you've got to be willing to step out and take some risks sometimes for things you're really passionate about. And I know you're not afraid to do that. You do that through Beacon Results. You've done that at the state level. And I'm just a huge fan of yours, Mike, and I'm so thankful. So we'll put your social media, we'll try to connect people with you and all that good stuff. We'll save this, like I say, we don't edit any of this. So this is the authentic deal. Maybe you'll get some pictures and things to Ross so he can dump that in on the YouTube version. But
done. We'll do that. I'll tell you, one of the things I learned, I'll just leave you with this thought, is somebody told me one time, if you're going to make the uncomfortable comfortable, it means you're going to have to make those who are comfortable uncomfortable for a period of time. It's like, okay. And it's amazing. Every time I push, it's exactly what happens. And it keeps telling me, good, I'm on that path.
I'm pushing in the right spot.
I'm happy to be here. Enjoyed my time. This is always good to come back every now and then and kind of sit still for a moment. Because again, that frenetic energy I got going on, it's time to go do something else now.
You're amazing, man. It's so great to see you. So thank you again, Mike Walsh, for being here at You Go First Live, and catch you around the planet, buddy.
You go first, buddy.
You go first.
No,
awesome.
I'm seriously. You go first.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of You Go First. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to listen to another episode, you can find us at yougofirst.live, or you can see more about our host, Lain Hensley, on his Instagram at One Dream Chaser. To learn more about his company, Odyssey Teams Inc., go to odysseyteams.com or follow all their social media channels at Odyssey Teams. Thanks again, and we hope that you will go first to share our podcast with a friend or colleague. Now, you go first.